Harry was 10 years old when he told Charles, "I don't want to be like you." The royal tutors were shocked, but Harry continued, "You make people sad. Mama says love should make people happy." Charles's face had frozen because his younger son was challenging the entire royal psychological system. Diana had secretly smiled. Her second son was rejecting his father's manipulation techniques. Years later, Harry would make a complete escape from the royal system, but the seeds were planted that day. The spare had an advantage: less pressure, more freedom, Diana's influence. But most importantly, Harry found emotional honesty more valuable than control. This was the ultimate rebellion story against royal psychological warfare. Diana's legacy, through her second son's courage to live authentically, completely rejecting the system and proving the power of modern love. Harry's rebellion story began in childhood, but its roots extended to Diana's conscious parenting. While William, as heir, received intense pressure and systematic royal conditioning, Harry received different treatment: more relaxed, more honest, more emotionally open. Diana realized that her second son needed a different approach. William's future king role required certain restrictions, but Harry, as the spare, could have more freedom to be authentic. "Harry," Diana said gently when he was 8 years old, "you don't have to be like everyone else. You can be yourself. Your heart is your gift." These words had a profound impact on young Harry. They were the exact opposite of the messages he constantly heard from his father. Control yourself, suppress emotions, to maintain dignity. Harry's natural personality was perfectly suited to Diana's emotional honesty approach: open, curious, empathetic, spontaneous. Challenging qualities for the royal system's traditional structure, but essential for authentic human connection. Charles hadn't initially attempted as much systematic control with Harry as with William. The heir's education was critical. The spare's was seen as less crucial. This inadvertent gift became Harry's salvation: less programming, more natural development. Harry observed his brother's transformation under royal pressure. William had been a playful, emotional child in childhood, but gradually became more controlled, more careful, more suppressed. Harry watched this change with growing awareness. "William used to laugh more," Harry confided to Diana when he was 10. "Now he's always serious, like Papa." Diana recognized the warning sign. The royal system was slowly absorbing William despite her efforts, but Harry was still resistant, still himself. Diana intensified her emotional honesty education with Harry. "Your feelings matter," she told him repeatedly. "Your authentic self is valuable. Don't let anyone convince you to become someone else." Charles occasionally attempted traditional royal conditioning with Harry, but the results were disappointing. Harry would challenge, question, resist in ways William had learned not to. "Harry needs more discipline," Charles complained to Diana. "More structure, more respect for authority." Diana was protective. "Harry needs acceptance. He needs to know he's loved for who he is, not who he might become." This fundamental disagreement about Harry's upbringing became an ongoing source of tension between the parents. Harry's natural emotional intelligence made him immediately suspicious of manipulation attempts. When people tried to control him through guilt, approval withdrawal, or authority intimidation, Harry's instinct was resistance, not submission. School years reinforced Harry's rebellious nature. The traditional educational approach, emphasizing hierarchy and control, felt wrong to him. Harry preferred collaborative learning, authentic relationships, emotional honesty. Teachers were initially frustrated with Harry's resistance to authority, But gradually, many came to appreciate his genuine nature, his refusal to fake compliance. Diana's tragic death when Harry was 12 years old marked a crucial turning point in his development. But what he didn't yet know was that this tragedy would actually strengthen his resolve to honor his mother's emotional honesty lessons. But what was truly shocking was that in the aftermath of Diana's death, Harry's growing resistance to his father and the royal system would become even more determined. In the grief process, Harry deeply resented the emotional suppression pressure. The royal family expected him to be strong, show dignity, maintain composure at his mother's funeral, and afterwards. Harry instinctively knew this approach was wrong. Grief needed expression, not suppression. Pain needed acknowledgement, not denial. Loss needed processing, not ignoring. "I want to talk about Mama," Harry told Charles after the funeral. "I want to remember her. I want to feel sad." Charles was uncomfortable. "Harry, dwelling on grief isn't healthy. You need to focus forward. Be strong." Harry was angry. "Mama said feelings were important. Said I should express them. You're asking me to ignore what she taught." This exchange crystallized the conflict between Diana's emotional honesty approach and the royal system's emotional suppression demands. Harry made a conscious choice: honor mother's teachings over father's expectations. This decision would shape the rest of his life. The teenage years brought increased pressure for Harry to conform to royal behavioral expectations. But instead of compliance, Harry showed growing defiance. Adolescent rebellion was normal, but Harry's rebellion had a deeper psychological foundation: rejection of manipulation techniques, insistence on authenticity, demand for genuine connection. Party incidents, academic struggles, behavioral problems, all were interpreted as a typical royal wild phase. But Harry knew differently. These actions weren't just rebellion against rules. They were rebellion against the entire psychological system trying to control and reshape him. See, military service provided Harry his first real escape from the royal psychological control environment, and what he didn't yet know was that this experience would completely transform his understanding of authentic leadership and genuine human connection. In the Army, Harry discovered an environment where merit mattered more than birth, where genuine relationships were possible, where emotional honesty was valued over manipulation. Fellow soldiers didn't care about his royal title. They cared about competence, loyalty, authentic character. For the first time, Harry experienced relationships based on mutual respect rather than hierarchy and control. In the military, Harry later reflected, "I learned what real brotherhood feels like. People had my back because they chose to, not because they had to." Military leadership training emphasized different principles than royal conditioning: inspire through example, lead through service, connect through genuine care for team members. This approach resonated deeply with Harry's natural emotional intelligence and Diana's teachings. Leadership didn't require control or manipulation. It required authenticity, empathy, genuine concern for others. Combat experience reinforced these lessons. In life-death situations, manipulation techniques were useless. Only genuine trust, authentic connection, real care for each other mattered. Harry's military service gave him confidence that alternative approaches to leadership and relationships were not only possible, but more effective. When Harry returned to royal duties, the contrast between the military's authentic environment and the royal manipulative system became stark and increasingly unbearable. Royal engagements felt performative, scripted, emotionally hollow compared to the genuine connections he'd experienced in the military. Royal relationships based on hierarchy and control felt manipulative compared to the brotherhood he'd known. Harry began openly questioning royal approaches, suggesting changes, pushing for more authentic engagement with the public. "Why do we have to be so formal?" Harry asked during royal briefings. "Why can't we be real with people? Why do we pretend to be something we're not?" Royal staff were uncomfortable with these questions. These questions challenged fundamental assumptions about royal behavior, royal relationships, royal purpose. Charles was increasingly frustrated with Harry's resistance to traditional approaches. Harry needs to learn proper royal behavior. He needs to understand his position, requires certain standards. But Harry now had evidence that different approaches worked better. Military success proved authentic leadership was more effective than manipulative control. This was exactly when everything changed. Because when Harry began therapy, he started professionally analyzing the royal family's psychological patterns, and this led to complete system rejection. Therapy was initially started for grief counseling after his mother's death, but evolved into comprehensive examination of family dynamics, relationship patterns, emotional health. The therapist helped Harry understand how royal psychological conditioning worked: emotional suppression, control through approval withdrawal, manipulation disguised as guidance, hierarchy used to prevent authentic connection. These patterns, the therapist explained, are learned behaviors passed down through generations. They can be recognized, understood, and changed. Harry realized these patterns were exactly what Diana had tried to protect him from. His mother's emotional honesty approach wasn't just a different preference. It was a psychologically healthier alternative to royal family dysfunction. Therapy sessions revealed how royal conditioning had affected William differently because of air pressure. William had internalized more control techniques, more emotional suppression, more manipulation patterns. Harry felt sadness for his brother, but also gratitude that his spare status had protected him from the worst conditioning effects. "I see now why Mama fought so hard for our emotional freedom," Harry reflected. She knew the system would try to break our spirits, make us into controlled people instead of authentic ones. Therapy empowered Harry to articulate what he'd always felt instinctively. The royal psychological system was unhealthy, manipulation-based, emotionally destructive. Armed with this professional validation, Harry became more confident in rejecting royal conditioning attempts, more determined to live authentically. The family didn't understand Harry's therapeutic insights. To them, his behavior seemed increasingly rebellious, disrespectful, inappropriate. But Harry knew he was choosing psychological health over family dysfunction, authentic relationships over manipulative control, emotional honesty over inherited patterns. Public work became an outlet for Harry's authentic approach. Mental health advocacy, veterans support, genuine engagement with people struggling with trauma and loss. This work reinforced everything Harry had learned about authentic connection, genuine care, emotional honesty. It helped him see how royal manipulation techniques prevented real helping relationships. When you're real with people, Harry discovered, they trust you. When you show genuine emotion, they connect with you. When you're authentic, you can actually help. This approach was the complete opposite of royal conditioning, but infinitely more effective for meaningful public service. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Because meeting Meghan would become the catalyst for Harry's final rebellion against the royal psychological control system. Meghan's American background, independent mindset, and modern relationship approach showed natural resistance to royal psychological patterns. In American culture, emotional openness was valued. Individual autonomy was respected. Manipulation techniques were less tolerated. Meghan immediately recognized unhealthy dynamics in royal family relationships. As an outsider, she could see patterns that family members had normalized. "Your family uses guilt to control you," Meghan observed early in their relationship. "They withdraw approval when you don't comply. They make you feel selfish for having boundaries." Harry was shocked by this clear articulation of what he'd sensed his whole life. Meghan's outside perspective validated his instincts about royal psychological dysfunction. Together, they analyzed royal family patterns: emotional suppression, approval conditioning, cultural superiority, social positioning, systematic control disguised as care. Meghan's presence accelerated Harry's rejection of these patterns. She provided an example of healthy relationship dynamics: mutual respect, emotional honesty, genuine support, shared decision-making. This is what love should feel like, Harry realized. Not conditional approval based on compliance, but acceptance and support for your authentic self. Meghan also faced royal psychological conditioning attempts. The family tried traditional control methods: cultural education pressure, social positioning, approval withdrawal when she didn't conform. But Meghan's independence, professional success, and cultural background made her resistant to these techniques. She recognized them as manipulation, not guidance. The royal family was frustrated by Meghan's resistance. Traditional conditioning methods were ineffective with someone who didn't need their approval, didn't accept their cultural superiority, didn't submit to their authority. Harry watched these attempts to control Meghan and felt protective rage. The family was using the same techniques on his wife that they'd used on his mother, that they'd attempted to use on him. "I won't let them break you like they tried to break Mama," Harry told Meghan. "We don't have to submit to this dysfunction." The wedding marked a public celebration of Harry's choice: authentic love over royal control, emotional honesty over psychological manipulation, mutual respect over hierarchical conditioning. But it also marked an escalation of family pressure. The royal system couldn't tolerate a visible example of an alternative approach succeeding. Media criticism, family disapproval, institutional resistance, all designed to pressure Harry and Meghan back into compliant behavior. Instead, these pressures convinced Harry that complete separation was necessary. Half measures wouldn't work. Gradual change was impossible. Total escape was required. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. Because Harry's decision to leave the royal system wasn't just a personal choice, but also a powerful statement against the entire psychological control system. Harry's departure represented a complete rejection of centuries-old royal psychological conditioning, a public statement that emotional health was more important than institutional loyalty, authentic relationships more valuable than traditional hierarchy. The decision required enormous courage. Harry was giving up financial security, social position, family relationships, national identity for psychological freedom, and an authentic life. "I cannot continue to enable a system that destroys people's spirits," Harry explained in farewell interviews. "I choose my family's well-being over institutional demands." This choice was particularly powerful because Harry wasn't the heir. He could have lived a comfortable life as the spare, attending royal functions, accepting the traditional role, avoiding confrontation. Instead, he chose the difficult path: building an independent life, facing public criticism, creating a new identity outside the royal system. Geographic relocation to America was symbolic of psychological separation: physical distance from the royal environment, royal relationships, royal expectations. In California, Harry and Meghan created a life based on Diana's emotional honesty principles, genuine relationships, authentic work, healthy family dynamics, mutual respect. Harry's parenting approach was consciously different from the royal conditioning he had experienced. Archie and Lilibet were raised with the emotional freedom Diana had fought to give her sons. "My children will know they're loved unconditionally," Harry declared. "They'll know their feelings matter. They'll know authenticity is more valuable than approval." This parenting approach was a direct rejection of the royal psychological system. Harry was breaking the generational cycle of emotional suppression, control conditioning, manipulation techniques. Public criticism of the royal family in interviews represented another level of rebellion. Harry was publicly articulating psychological dysfunction that the family had always denied. "There's a culture of fear, of control, of manipulation disguised as duty," Harry explained. "People are afraid to be authentic because authenticity threatens the system." These public statements were unprecedented in royal history. Never before had a family member so clearly described internal psychological dynamics, manipulation techniques, emotional dysfunction. Harry's courage in speaking truth enabled others to recognize similar patterns in their own families, their own institutions, their own relationships. Now you've seen nothing. Because Harry's rebellion wasn't just personal liberation, but also a powerful example for modern society of how individuals can break free from institutional psychological control. Harry's story provided a template for others trapped in dysfunctional family systems, manipulative relationships, controlling institutions. Key lessons from Harry's rebellion: recognize manipulation techniques, trust emotional instincts, seek professional help, find supportive relationships, prioritize psychological health. You choose authenticity over approval. Harry's journey showed that even the most powerful psychological control systems can be resisted, that healthier alternatives exist, that individual courage can break generational patterns. Mental health advocacy work continued in America, focused on trauma recovery, emotional healing, authentic relationships. Harry was using his platform to promote the psychological wellness principles Diana had taught him. "My mother's greatest gift wasn't a royal title or social position," Harry reflected. "It was teaching me that my authentic self is worth protecting, that emotional honesty is valuable, that genuine love doesn't require control or manipulation." Harry's rebellion was ultimately successful because it was rooted in psychological health rather than mere defiance. He wasn't rejecting responsibility. He was choosing healthy responsibility over dysfunctional obligation. Professional therapy, supportive marriage, geographic freedom, meaningful work, authentic relationships. All elements of psychological health Diana had advocated. Harry's children benefit from this healthier foundation. Archie and Lilibet are growing up with emotional intelligence, authentic relationships, genuine acceptance rather than conditional approval. William, still in the royal system, shows some adaptation of Harry's insights. Catherine's influence, therapy acceptance, more emotional openness in parenting. Signs that royal psychological patterns are slowly changing. Harry's rebellion created space for family evolution. By rejecting the system completely, Harry forced examination of what was worth preserving versus what needed changing. The modern royal family must grapple with questions Harry raised: how to maintain institutional purpose while allowing authentic relationships, how to preserve tradition while promoting psychological health, how to exercise leadership without using manipulation. Harry's courage in leaving enabled these crucial conversations. Sometimes complete rejection is necessary to inspire partial reform. You won't believe it, But Harry's rebellion story isn't just royal family drama, but also universal inspiration for anyone trapped in psychological control systems. Every family, every institution, every relationship contains some elements of the control versus authenticity tension. Harry's example shows that healthy alternatives are possible. That individual courage can challenge even the most entrenched systems. Key principles from Harry's journey. Emotional honesty is strength, not weakness. Authentic relationships are more valuable than controlled ones. Psychological health should be prioritized over institutional loyalty. Professional help is essential for breaking dysfunctional patterns. Supportive partnerships can provide courage for difficult choices. Harry's rebellion succeeded because it was comprehensive. Therapy for understanding patterns, supportive relationship for courage, geographic separation for safety, meaningful work for purpose, healthy parenting for cycle breaking. Most importantly, Harry's rebellion was rooted in love rather than anger. Love for his mother's memory, love for his wife's well-being, love for his children's future, love for the authentic self Diana had helped him discover. This love-based foundation made the rebellion sustainable. Anger-based rebellion might have led to bitterness, regret, ongoing conflict. Love-based rebellion led to healing, growth, positive change. Harry's story continues evolving. Children growing up with emotional freedom, marriage modeling healthy dynamics, work promoting psychological wellness, family healing from generational trauma. Diana's legacy lives through Harry's choices. Emotional honesty over control, authentic relationships over manipulation, psychological health over institutional pressure, genuine love over conditional approval. The royal system was forced to examine its psychological foundations because Harry demonstrated that healthier alternatives exist and thrive. Harry's rebellion is the ultimate tribute to Diana's memory. Living authentically, loving genuinely, prioritizing emotional health, protecting family from psychological manipulation, from spare to psychological freedom pioneer, from royal obligation to authentic choice, from inherited dysfunction to conscious health. A modern family liberation example, Harry's courageous rebellion, Diana's lasting legacy, emotional honesty triumph, authentic love victory. This is the inspiring end of a perfect modern psychology lesson. And so Harry's rebellion story comes to an end. A journey from psychological control to authentic freedom. An evolution from royal conditioning to emotional honesty. A transformation from family dysfunction to healthy relationships. A courage inspiration for modern individuals. The power of Harry's liberating choice. The legacy of Diana's emotional wisdom. The proof of authentic self's value. The foundation of next generation's hope.